The studio lights blazed, pouring golden heat across the set of The Kelly Clarkson Show. The audience buzzed, clapping and cheering as Kelly Bright's smile, easy southern warmth leaned forward in her chair. Please welcome the one and only Jennifer Lopez. The crowd exploded. Jennifer swept onto the stage, sequined dress catching every beam of light, her stride confident, practiced. She waved, flashed her legendary smile, and slipped into the guest chair. Relaxed posture, sharp eyes, ready. At first the conversation was smooth. Kelly lobbed the usual questions, new music, films, late-night rehearsals gone wrong. Jennifer's answers were polished yet playful. Her laugh filled the studio, and the audience hung on her every word. But then subtle, almost imperceptible, Kelly's tone shifted. The charm was still there, but underneath it, an edge. So, she began, lightly, about your new wellness brand. Some people online are saying it feels a little out of reach, that it's more cash grab than empowerment. Do you think you might be out of touch with fans? The question landed hard. A ripple went through the crowd. Jennifer's smile held, but tighter now. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a small tell of discomfort. Her answer was calm, almost rehearsed. Empowerment, not exploitation. The audience clapped, but Kelly didn't let go. I mean, I've seen fans online say they feel priced out. Does that bother you? Do you worry about losing touch? The room stilled. Jennifer shifted in her seat. Her composure remained, but her eyes had sharpened. And then Kelly went deeper. You've been balancing fame, family, ambition for decades. Do you ever feel like the pressure to be perfect has pushed you into choices you regret? It sounded sympathetic, but everyone in the studio felt the sting. Jennifer froze. Her lips parted as if to answer, then closed. She locked eyes with Kelly. The warmth was gone. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, deliberate. I don't believe in regrets. Only lessons. It was an answer, but it felt like a warning. Kelly tried to pivot, smiling too quickly. Well, speaking of lessons, tell us about your tour. But Jennifer wasn't smiling anymore. Her replies shortened, her sparkle dimmed. The audience clapped on cue, but the energy had shifted. Everyone felt it. Finally, Kelly asked for a fun behind-the-scenes story from Jennifer's new movie. A softball. Safe ground. Jennifer leaned back, crossed her arms, and shook her head. No, let's talk about something real. Something that matters. The audience murmured. Kelly laughed a quick, sharp laugh, too high-pitched. Well, we can do both. But Jennifer was done. She stood, movements measured. Final. I need a moment. The heels of her shoes clicked like gunshots against the polished floor as she walked off. Gasps rippled through the audience. Kelly called after her half-apology. Half-shocked, but Jennifer didn't look back. The stage manager waved frantically, signaling the cut. The screens faded to commercial. The audience sat stunned, whispering, wide-eyed, knowing they'd just witnessed live television history. Backstage, the air was charged. Heavy with the kind of silence that follows a thunderclap, Jennifer Lopez moved quickly down the narrow corridor, her heels striking the floor like gunfire. Her team followed in a frantic cluster, their voices low, urgent, but she gave them nothing, no glance, no word. Her face was a fortress. Jaw clenched, eyes fixed forward, she looked untouchable, but her pace betrayed her fury. A production assistant with a clipboard half-stepped into her path, thought better of it, and froze. Jennifer swept past and disappeared into her dressing room, the door slamming shut behind her. Outside, her team exchanged looks, uncertain whether to wait or retreat. Inside, Jennifer pressed her palms to the vanity, the lights above the mirror glaring back at her reflection. A woman who had faced endless scrutiny, endured decades in the spotlight, and always come out on top. But this felt different. Kelly hadn't just interviewed her. She'd probed, pressed, and peeled back layers Jennifer hadn't offered. And Jennifer had felt it like a blade. Out on the set, Kelly Clarkson sat frozen in her chair. The audience murmured, restless, buzzing like a hive after being struck. The stage manager's voice barked through the crew's headsets, snapping everyone into motion. Kelly blinked herself back into host mode, forcing a smile as brittle as glass. Well, live TV, you never know what's gonna happen, she said with too much cheer, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The cameras cut to commercial. The audience clapped, but their eyes lingered on the wings where Jennifer had vanished. In the control room, chaos reigned. Producers replayed the footage, eyes glued to every word, every expression. Kelly's escalating questions. Jennifer's smile hardening. The silence before she stood. The executive producer leaned forward, muttering, we need to get ahead of this now. Options flew across the room. Cut the segment, spin it as a dramatic TV moment, bury it under fluff. But everyone knew, the internet was already on fire. Back in her dressing room, Jennifer's phone lit up endlessly on the counter calls from her manager, her publicist, friends, family. She ignored them all, pacing. This wasn't the first time someone had pushed too far, but Kelly was supposed to know better. They weren't strangers, they had history, and that made the sting sharper. She stopped pacing when her eyes landed on a framed photo on the wall. Her on stage, Sweat-drenched, fierce, fearless, she exhaled slowly, resolve setting in. She wasn't going to let this moment define her. Not here, not like this. Meanwhile, Kelly huddled with a producer in the corner of the set. The producer's voice was low, urgent. What happened out there? Why'd you push her like that? Kelly's smile faltered, her expression flickering with regret. I didn't think I crossed the line. I thought we were just being real. Two women, having a real conversation. But even to her own ears, the words sounded hollow. The producer's face was grim. Get ready for the next segment. Keep it light. The audience was led into a soft intermission music playing, chatter filling the space. Phones were out, timelines already spinning theories. Some swore it was staged, a publicity stunt. Others, especially those who had seen the look in Jennifer's eyes, knew it wasn't. This was real, and raw. The break ended. Lights flared. Kelly's smile returned, polished but tight. She launched into a monologue about technical difficulties, then pivoted hard into introducing a celebrity chef for a cooking demo. The audience clapped, but their attention was fractured. Their eyes kept darting to the empty guest chair, its vacancy louder than anything happening on stage. Backstage, Jennifer's team had crowded into her dressing room, voices overlapping, each armed with strategies. You need to go back out there, her publicist urged. A smile, a joke, diffuse it. Social media is blowing up. This is spiraling already. Jennifer scrolled through her phone, her face unreadable. Tweets, headlines, clips, commentary. Everyone had an opinion. Some rallied to her defense, blasting Kelly for ambushing her. Others accused Jennifer of being thin-skinned, dodging accountability. She set the phone down deliberately, her voice even. I need a minute. Her team hesitated, then filed out, leaving her alone with her reflection again. The muffled hum of the live show pressing through the walls. In the control room, the debate raged hotter. One producer argued for scrapping the footage altogether. Pretend it didn't happen. But the executive producer cut them off. It's already viral. The only way through this is if she goes back out tour, gives us something. A statement, a soundbite, anything. The question lingered, heavy as the studio lights. Would Jennifer Lopez return to the stage or let her silence speak louder than anything she could say? The control room was a hive of nervous energy. A junior producer floated the idea of reaching out to Jennifer's camp, but the reply that came back was short, almost dismissive. She's not ready to talk. The clock was merciless. The show had to move forward, but the weight of Jennifer's exit lingered like static in the air. They pivoted to the cooking segment, hoping Kelly's warmth could patch the cracks. On stage, she slipped into her familiar rhythm, joking about her own culinary disasters, tossing out one-liners to keep the mood alive, but her spark was dulled. Her gaze kept drifting toward the empty guest chair. When her smile faltered, the audience caught it. Their applause was thin, distracted. Half of them were staring at the stage, the other half glued to their phones as social media unraveled the drama in real time. The chef carried on, plating a dish and offering Kelly a bite, blissfully unaware of the storm churning around him. Kelly laughed, but it rang hollow. Even the crew watching from the wings exchanged looks. One whispered to another, wondering if Jennifer had already left the building. Someone swore they'd seen her team near the exit. She hadn't. In her dressing room, Jennifer sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. She was no stranger to controversy. Her career had been a gauntlet of criticism, but this felt different. This felt personal. Kelly hadn't just asked hard questions. She'd pressed on scars Jennifer had spent years learning to live with. That cut deeper than banter. That cut like betrayal. She considered walking back out, pasting on the invincible smile the world expected. But a voice inside whispered, "You don't owe them this. Not today." She rose, smoothing her dress, staring at the door as though the entire world stood on the other side, waiting for her to decide. Was it an apology they wanted? A performance? She wasn't sure she had either to give. On stage, the segment wrapped. Kelly thanked the chef, her tone bright but her eyes weary. The applause was polite, fractured, the tension still thick in the room. Another break was called, and she slipped off stage, shoulders sinking. Passing a crew member, she caught the flicker of avoidance in their eyes and, for the first time, the weight of what had happened pressed hard. She pushed into her dressing room, the noise of the studio fading behind her. Dropping into a chair, she rubbed her temples as if she could knead the tension away. Her assistant hovered with a bottle of water. She waved it off, her eyes fixed on the backstage monitor. The audience, restless during the break, buzzed with confusion and excitement. They weren't talking about the cooking demo. They were talking about Jennifer, about the walk-off, about her. The realization stung. Guilt and frustration tangled. Inside her, she hadn't meant to cross a line. In the moment, the questions had felt honest, real. Now they felt reckless, like a wound she couldn't close. Outside, the hallways bristled with urgency. Jennifer's team hadn't left, but they weren't budging either. The executive producer cornered Kelly's manager, demanding clarity. Would Kelly address the walk-off on air, or bury it under the next segment? The manager glanced at Kelly through the doorway, but her face was unreadable. No one knew where she stood. In her dressing room, Jennifer stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. Her publicist urged her to go back out, spin the moment into strength. Jennifer shook her head. Not after that, not after someone she'd laughed with, texted late-night gripes about the industry had turned a private wound into public spectacle. Her phone buzzed again, a message from a close friend. "You okay?" She didn't respond, but the question grounded her, reminded her she was more than this moment. In the control room, the producers fought against time. Clips of the confrontation were already everywhere, hashtags exploding across platforms. Jennifer's name trended alongside Kelly's, their fans clashing in real time. One side called Jennifer brave, another called her fragile. Kelly was painted as either a truth-teller or a bully. The executive producer made the call. Scrap the filler, lean on the next musical guest. Kelly would need to re-energize the room, introduce them like nothing had happened. A runner bolted down the hall with the couche eat, but unease hung heavy. No one knew if the show could be salvaged. On stage, the audience settled again as the lights dimmed, waiting for the curtain to rise. The stage manager's countdown hit 0, and the cameras blinked alive. Kelly reappeared on screen. Her smile, bright, her delivery smooth, but her eyes carried a flicker of shadow. She introduced the night's musical guest with a quick joke that landed flat. The audience clapped politely, but their attention was fractured. Screens lighting up with live updates. A ripple of whispers spread as sharp-eyed viewers noticed Jennifer's team moving through the halls. Was she still in the building? The singer's voice swelled through the studio, but it couldn't drown out the hum of tension. Crew members traded uneasy glances, each wondering if Jennifer would make a surprise return or if she was already gone for good. In her dressing room, Jennifer decided. She snatched her purse, movements brisk, purposeful. When her team moved to follow, she lifted a handstay. This was hers to do alone. She wasn't running, but she wasn't returning either. Her heels echoed down the corridor, not toward the stage, but the exit. The noise of the studio dulled behind her, replaced by the sting of cool air as she pushed through the back door. The lot stretched quiet, her car waiting with the driver at attention. Hand on the door handle, she paused. Her breath was steady but heavy. She told herself this wasn't retreat, it was control. And yet, Kelly's words still stung, sharp as glass, amplified by the weight of millions watching. Jennifer slid into the car, the door shutting with a final thud. As the vehicle pulled away, she glanced back at the glowing studio lights like a stage she had abandoned. Mid-act. Inside, the performance wrapped. The applause was polite, distracted. Kelly stood off stage, arms folded, eyes locked on the monitors. She had forced her voice steady through the segment, but the strain showed in the tightness of her jaw. The stage manager waved for the next B10 audience. Game, but Kelly's heart wasn't there. She caught the producer's eye. A silent question. Any word? The answer came with a shake of the head. Jennifer was gone. Kelly nodded once, stiff, then stepped back into the spotlight. The smile snapped into place like armor. The crowd laughed when cued, but their phones buzzed ceaselessly. The storm outside louder than anything happening on stage. In the control room, chaos reigned. The executive producer juggled calls from network execs, voices taut with panic. The show was trending worldwide, but for all the wrong reasons. Clips of Jennifer's walk-off were already dissected online, some calling it a power move, others branding it a meltdown. By producers debated sending a car to intercept her, to coax her back for one last appearance. But her team's final message was blunt. She was done. They pivoted to damage control, drafting a vague closer for Kelly, respecting Jennifer's space, wishing her well. It read like gauze on an open wound. Backstage, Kelly's assistant slipped her a phone. Social media seethed hashtags, think pieces, split loyalties. Some hailed Kelly's honesty. Others accused her of ambushing her guest. Kelly scrolled, her stomach knotting as the vitriol piled against them both. Kelly handed the phone back, her voice low, asking for a moment alone. In her dressing room, she collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. She had wanted honesty, not fluff, but not this. Not a rupture that had spun so wildly, out of control. For a fleeting second, she thought about texting Jennifer, maybe calling. But what could she say? The moment was too raw, too exposed, already claimed by the public. Out on the streets, Jennifer's car merged into traffic, the studio shrinking in the rearview. Her phone buzzed with a message from her publicist. Draft statements, talking points, strategies to frame her walk-off as defiance, as authenticity. She ignored it. Leaning back, she closed her eyes and let the rhythm of the city steady her. The fallout would be vicious. The headlines, the memes, the commentary from strangers who thought they knew her story. But beneath the noise was her truth. Years of scrutiny, the resilience it took to endure it, and the fracture that had finally split through her carefully polished surface. She wasn't sorry for leaving. But peace hadn't come either. On set, Kelly wrapped the audience game, her energy thinning as the show edged toward its close. Applause rippled. dutiful but muted. The earlier drama still hung in the air, swallowing everything else. When the cameras cut back, Kelly stood center stage, hands clasped, smile practiced. Her voice was steady, softer than usual. She thanked the audience, the guests, the crewwards, polished yet sincere. Then she paused, her eyes catching something unspoken. Sometimes conversations get real, she said, and that's what makes them human. The crowd clapped, subdued. They knew it was a salve, not a cure. Kelly signed off with her signature grin, but when the credits rolled, she walked off without looking back. Her shoulders bore a new weight. In the control room, the producers finally exhaled. The show was over, but the storm had only begun. The episode would be a ratings triumph, but at what cost? Clips of Jennifer's departure already spread like wildfire, reframed and dissected into 1,000 competing truths. Fans drew battle lines, some applauding Jennifer's refusal to play along, others calling it a meltdown. Some hailed Kelly's candor, others accused her of ambush. The neutral press release they drafted respecting both women, valuing their voices, already felt flimsy, like a pebble tossed into a flood. Jennifer's car slid into her hotel's underground garage. Cameras flashed at the entrance, but she walked past them without a word. Inside her suite, she kicked off her heels, collapsed onto the couch. Her phone was a minefield of notifications, but one message stood out, a check-in from her sister. Just a simple, "Are you okay?" She didn't reply, not yet. Instead, she poured a glass of water and let the silence swallow her. She knew the walk-off would follow her for weeks, maybe months, but in a world that demanded endless performance, she had chosen the cost of stepping away. Kelly packed in silence. Her team buzzed around her with plans for tomorrow's show, but she barely heard them. Her mind replayed Jennifer's face, hurt, defiant, just before she walked out. Kelly thought about reaching out, but the moment was too big now, too public, too tangled. She slung her bag over her shoulder and stepped into the cool night. The drive home was quiet. Her thoughts circled only one question: if she ever had the chance to make things right, what would she say? By morning, the confrontation was everywhere and all eyes on podcasts. Debated on talk shows, spliced into clips that looped endlessly online. To some, Jennifer was a hero for standing her ground. To others, unprofessional. Kelly's defenders praised her honesty. Critics called her reckless. But beyond the noise, the story was simpler. Two women caught in a world that demanded perfection. Their vulnerabilities exposed in a moment neither could undo. The studio would host new guests. Fresh segments, laughter, canned and genuine. But the echo of that day lingered. Proof of the cost of being real under a spotlight that never dims. And somewhere, in their separate corners of the world, Jennifer and Kelly carried on. The cameras had stopped rolling. But the story wasn't finished, not for them, not for the millions still watching, waiting for what would come next.